All right, guys, we are live here with Tim Bratz. Guys, tonight is the biggest show we have ever done. Josh, we were talking about this week. We're saying, of all the speakers we've had on the show so far, tonight is the first time where I think we're on the show with a future billionaire. Like, no joke.
Yep.
This is Tim Bratz. Tim Bratz, if you guys haven't heard about him, I don't know how you haven't heard about him. He's grown his portfolio to 3,900 apartment units. That is insane. Worth over $350 million. That's right, $350 million. So guys, tonight is the biggest show ever. Once Tim is like the next Donald Trump rolling with billions, you're never going to be able to talk to him. But tonight and tonight only, you can post your questions in the comments below. You can directly ask him whatever you want and learn directly from him what it takes to grow to a $350 million portfolio. Tim, thanks for being on the show. Welcome to the show. And we're here with Josh Cohen from DC First Properties. Josh, thanks for hosting. Tim, super stoked to have you on the show. Let's jump into things.
No, man, I appreciate you guys having me. I'm fired up to be here, and I'm going to bring fire, dude. So get ready. Like I want to drop and bring as much value as I possibly can here. So awesome. Let's go. Yeah.
I always say, hey, when we do these shows, we're doing them to try to make people as much money as fast as possible. Just opening the book and telling people exactly how we do what we do. Okay, so I know a lot of people have been following your last series on Facebook where you've done the $1 million in 1 month challenge, right? Which is, when you started this thing, I was like, nah, he's not going to hit it. He's not going to hit it. Is he going to hit it? Like, it started
That's what fuels me, dude. It's people like you that fuel me, you know?
Yeah, and we're all we're like, is Tim going to hit it? Is Tim going to hit it? So I think, let me pull it up here. You ended up doing $1,050,000 in cash and building $1.4 million in equity accounts receivable. So we got to ask you, how the hell did you do that? How and why? Why did you do that? Why did you do the challenge, and how did you pull it off?
No, I think it's a great question, man. Like I remember sitting there when all this COVID-19 stuff was going down, and people were like, oh, woe is me. The economy's so hard. It's so difficult. Nobody's making money. I was like, dude, I know some people that are making a lot of money right now. Like, if you have a toilet paper manufacturing company, you're making a lot of money right now, right? if you can make hand sanitizer, you're making a lot of money right now. Like, I remember looking up and seeing this chart of all these Amazon products that are like 300% sales increases. Like, dude, if you sell 9mm ammunition, you made a lot of money. Like, that was the best quarter ever, right? So, I'm thinking about this, and everybody's saying like how hard it is to make money. I was like, dude, somebody needs to like go out and just make $1 million or something, and show people that it can be done in like 30 days of just starting a new business or a new of all new revenue. And then I remember laying in bed and being like, hey, Tim, it's like one of these ideas that like gets put in your head, and then you're like, it's put in my head for a reason. Like, I need to now take ownership over this, So I'm like, it's not going to happen from somebody else. I got to take 100% ownership of it. And so I was like, F it, let's do it. So it was on May 15th. I was like, all right, guys. And I went live on Facebook, and I was like, all right, here's the deal. Everybody's saying negativity. I'm tired of the negative press. I'm tired of, all these just like the most dismal pictures that are painted by the press, because the press gets paid for clicks. People who click in, that's how they make money. It's like they have to have the worst headline ever, and they get people who then opt in and start reading the story because they're attracting with the worst. People like to watch train wreck, right? And so I was like, I'm tired of this, man. I'm tired of people being sheep and being influenced by the garbage out there. And like, somebody needs to go and give them some inspiration. So I was like, all right, guys, here's the ground rules. I'm going to generate $1 million of new revenue over the next 30 days, not including stuff that I already have coming in. So like, I have 4,000 rentals that generate millions of dollars a month in revenue. That doesn't count, right? It's got to be something new, like a new business, new launch. Now, it's not totally fair because I'm starting out with a little bit of influence. I have a decent following on social media and stuff. And so like, people kind of know me, and I have the knowledge that's in my brain, right? And so you can't totally say that I started out from scratch,
right?
But I can tell you that I didn't utilize things that were already like new revenue, and it didn't count that. So man, I'm sitting back, and the first couple of days it was just like, how do we sharpen the axe? How do we put the plan in place to make this happen? I think a lot of people, you can generate $100,000 just with like lighting your hair on fire and going. But to make $1 million by yourself of new revenue, you need a team, right? You need a plan. You need to like have leverage. And so like, I would say the biggest thing that I learned was the importance of not time management, but time leverage. I only have 24 hours a day. Warren Buffett only has 24 hours a day. You guys only have 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
How does Warren Buffett make $100 billion, right? How does Jeff Bezos make hundreds of billions? He's gonna be the first trillionaire ever, right? And so like, how is that possible? Because of leverage, time leverage, not time management. And so that was a big deal. That was like, all right, so who do I need to put in place? Here's an awesome practice that you guys can try out. Imagine you had to run your business from a cell phone for 10 minutes a day. That's all you get. You're on an island somewhere where all you have is cell phone service for 10 minutes a day. Who do you call and who do you talk to for those 10 minutes? What are the KPIs, the metrics that you put in place that you have to measure in those 10 minutes to understand, is your business growing or is it dying, right? And I think if you put yourself under those constrained, like that constrained mindset, it really gets you thinking in a different way. Like I know people come to me like, hey dude, how do I go from selling 5 deals a month to doing 8 deals a month? I was like, dude, you ask yourself that question, it's gonna be the same answer. It's like just doing more of the same shit you're already doing, right? First is asking yourself the question of how do I go from 5 deals a month to 35 deals a month? You can't possibly just do more of what you're doing. You would just implode. So you have to put new processes in place. You have to put certain people in place. You have to put certain things in place and leverage versus you doing all of it yourself. So, you start asking better questions, you start getting better answers. And I love the constrained mindset. When you put yourself in a mental constraint like that and you make a declaration of like, hey, Facebook world, I'm going to make $1 million inside 30 days. I got to do it, right? Like, otherwise I'm going to look like a clown. And so it put a constraint on me to go out and make $1 million. And so I was thinking, I was like, all right, well, here's what I would do. I would reach out to the people who run my education business and be like, here's what we need. We need to promote the mastermind group and then like restructure the whole mastermind and make it super advantageous. You have to offer massive value to people. Like, it has to be a no-brainer for them to stroke a check to pay for whatever you're selling. And that being said, you're talking about value, not price point, or like price point didn't matter. I was selling my mastermind for $24,000, but the value you can get from being in a mastermind is, I mean, shoot, dude, like the deal that I'm closing tomorrow that I was telling you guys about before we jumped on here was like, we're going to get an $180,000 acquisition fee.
Wow.
Not including the equity that's involved in that, right? So like, to drop $24,000 and I do a deal like that every single month. So in order to drop 24 grand to learn how to do that every week, essentially, you see the value proposition is there, right? So as long as you have the value there, the price is not important. And so that was a big piece, making sure that everything that we did was just super, super valuable. And then kind of understanding what the boxes are of new revenue that we could generate. So once my acquisitions guy, I was like, dude, we got to go wholesale some deals, right? So let's go wholesale a few apartment buildings. I went to my coaching students. I said, here's what we got to do here. Or not my coach students, but the coaching partners. And then I went to my operations team and I said, hey guys, like, we got crushed in our vacation rentals. Our vacation rentals just got kicked in the nuts.
You do a lot of those, right? Like, that's a big segment of your
I only had 3, but it was a significant amount of money, And so everything got canceled for the entire summer. Like, Disney got closed down. I got a few of them down outside, or 2 of them are outside of Disney World. And so I said, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do some massive blitz. We're going to rent out a 9-bedroom, 6.5 bath house with a screened-in patio and pool and hot tub for $199 a night. Less than a hotel room, right? So like, let's generate some revenue. So boom, 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 got that done. Came across a deal. I posted on Facebook. I'm like, we're looking for apartment buildings, I'm looking for commercial deals. Somebody brought me one. They needed some help sponsoring the loan and raising the money. I was able to jump in, get involved in that deal. I have a small percentage of it, but 14% of that deal is worth $1.2 million. So that generated a bunch of like equity on paper. So just did stuff like that, man. And just kept on cranking away. And there's a couple of things I didn't even get to that I'm going to launch like this month. And what's crazy about it is like, you get the ball rolling, the momentum, and all of a sudden it spills over into month 2 and spills over into month 3. And I got, all this residual opportunity coming in from what I created. It's like the chaos that occurred last month.
So this challenge has sort of permanently affected you, how you do business, I'm assuming. Sounds like.
Well, I think it sets a new normal, right? Like once you make $100,000 in a month, you expect to make $100,000 every month. Once you like I remember early on, 2014 was the first year I ever made six figures. And I was like, oh man, now I need to make six figures every single year, right? And then the next year I made 400 grand. I was like, I need to make $400,000 every year, right? And it doesn't always work out that way. And like 2016 was actually a really tough year. But 2017 was awesome. And 2018 was awesome. 2019, and then this year's going, hey, gangbusters for me. But like, it sets a new normal. Like, what is the temperature? Like, once you do 5 deals, you're like, oh, this isn't that bad. It's kind of actually easy to do, and you put the right systems and people and processes and operations and things in place. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, now you make $100,000 or $1 million every single month. And dude, honestly, like I was a little bit, I was glad that it's fun to hit your goals, but at the same time, you're like, dude, maybe I was a sissy. Why didn't I say 2 million? Why didn't I say 5 million, 10 million, or 20 million, or 100 million? What the hell is wrong with me? And so, it's cool to hit your goals, but there's that Michelangelo quote. It's like, it's better to aim high and miss than aim low and hit, because you never know what your true potential is. Yeah. And so, I generated almost $2.5 million of new value inside 30 days. Now I'm like, why can't I do 5 million every 30 days? Why can't I do, 10 million consistently every 30 days? And I think it's possible. I think we learned a lot during the process. It's just like, you got to get outside your comfort zone, man. You got to put those constraints on yourself, because once you have constraints on yourself, then it forces you to kind of really move forward.
So I got 2 really big key insights out of this. I think the first one is that, this is a lot like what Warren Buffett, he has this phrase, I love it. He's like, when there's blood in the streets, that's the time to be greedy. When everyone's greedy, be scared. I don't know. When you're skeptical, be scared. When people are scared, be greedy, right?
Greedy when everyone's fearful.
Yeah. Coronavirus, everyone's like freaking out, think the world's going to end. It's like, everyone's just pulling back, like not working as much. But that's the time to pounce. That's the time to go, like, really push hard, set new heights for yourself. Like, don't stop. I work with lots of different clients, tons of different wholesalers across the country. And there was 2 categories. There's the guys like you that were just like pedal to the metal. I'm not firing anyone. I'm hiring more people. There's another group that were like, we're going to cut expenses. We're going to let people off. Like, now they're playing catch up, trying to hire people back. Like, it just like screwed them up. So have that mindset. Just like, when other people are scared, be greedy. And then the second thing, I love this question you asked. You had 10 minutes per day to manage your business, 1 phone call. Who would you call? What would you say? Because it just completely changes your mindset, right? It just completely changes. You start thinking about leverage. You start thinking about, who is on my team? Can I trust them? Can I have them execute for me? Because I think so many business owners, they're thinking, hey, I got to execute on everything myself. I talked to Richard Branson a few years ago, and he told me, I asked him, I'm like, how do you build so many multi-billion-dollar businesses? Like, over and over, it's like billion, every single business. He said, Robert, there's 3 things you should focus on. This is the only secret. Number 1, craft the vision for the future you want to generate, whatever vision it is. Number 2, find the best people to execute on that vision. And number 3, this is what you spend your time on. You spend all your time just trying to get resources to give those people the ability to execute on the vision. So it sounds like probably you did a lot of that over the last 30 days, right? Like, you had to have like a killer team that you could trust, that you could depend on to be able to go hit $1 million in one.
My team is rock star, and very similar to what he's saying. That's kind of how I envision my team. I envision my team as, so like in real estate, for instance, and in most, every business, dude, has the same underlying fundamentals, right? Like, you got finance and accounting, you got marketing, you got sales, you got operations, human resources, whatever. And I think specifically in real estate, there's sourcing deals, sourcing money, and operations. Those 3 things are the 3 revenue generating things that you need to be doing in real estate. So I have a pillar in each one of those, and I have an engine of a person that runs each one. So my guy Nick is my director of acquisitions. My guy Fadi is my chief investment officer, and then my guy Matt is my COO. And so I see my job as the fuel to feed those engines. And that's kind of what Richard Branson's saying, I guess, is like, I see my job as fueling them, giving them deal flow, giving them money flow, helping them out with any sort of connections, resources on the operations side to refine that side of things, and really just like giving them everything that they need to go and execute on the operational side. So I love that he says that, and I see a lot of parallels kind of in what I'm doing. It actually gives me some validation on what you know.
You had $2 billion in the last 30 days, and you did it right. So
yeah.
That's it, Robert. I'm only calling you for 30 seconds tomorrow. That's it.
I always joke with Josh. We have like the funniest phone calls. I'm like, man, we could record our phone calls and sell them. Like, I'm on the phone with them every day, and it's just like, it's hilarious, our phone calls. And there's also so many crazy like ideas we come up with that, like, I don't know, it's hilarious.
Love it.
That's great.
We got a lot of folks listening tonight who have not done their first commercial deal yet.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a guy who went from residential to commercial. What did your first deal look like, and sort of how can a residential investor take that first step?
Yeah. So first of all, let me kind of like back up and give you guys a high level on who I am, where I'm from. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, a B-class blue collar neighborhood outside of Cleveland, Ohio. My dad was a cop. My mom was a stay-at-home mom with like an education degree, full-time volunteer kind of thing. I got 3 siblings, so 1 of 4 kids. Went to public school, right? Like, so I don't come from money. I don't come from Ivy League knowledge. I don't come from my great-great-granddad had all this property and passed it down. I am first generation real estate investor, right? So I go to school 03 to 07 when the market's going crazy. I'm 30. I'll be 35 this month. But 03 to 07, I'm in college. And everybody's like, if you want to make money, get involved in real estate. And that's what motivated a 20-year-old kid at the time. So started like a construction company in the summertime. We'd paint houses and do landscaping, worked for one of the biggest home builders in the country. And then when I graduated in 07, I ended up moving out to New York City and lived with my brother, who lived out there at the time. And I thought you got involved in real estate by becoming a real estate agent. So I went and got my license. And for whatever reason, I somehow parked it with a commercial real estate brokerage. And what they did is they brokered leases for retail and office for businesses and landlords in Manhattan, in New York City. And so it took me like 8 or 9 months to close my first deal from 07 to 08.
Yeah.
And I ended up closing a dumpy little 400 square foot space and signed a 12-year lease term. I think it was, 12-year lease term at $10,000 a month for 400 square feet.
Wow.
With 4% annual increases and all this stuff. And I'm like, holy cow, like this landlord's going to make almost $2 million over the next 12 years for something we did one time. And I'm like, dude, I'm on the wrong side of the coin. I need to be doing that instead of brokering real estate. So I moved down to Charleston, South Carolina. If anybody's ever been there, it's a beautiful, beautiful town. And I went through that whole like study, read, learn everything. This is end of 2008 now. And so as I'm reading about real estate and being like, dude, I'm going to light the world on fire, real estate crumbles and everything falls apart. And I show up, I'm like, dude, I just got to the party and everybody's leaving, right? Like, oh man. The good news is I probably would have done some stupid stuff. I would have taken out these like no doc loans and been like, yeah, I make this much money. Give me a bunch of like recourse loans and go and buy a bunch of property. I didn't know what the hell I was doing with it. And but it was a really, really good learning experience because I like met all these real estate people and I saw some of them who were worth X number of dollars, like tens of millions of dollars on paper, and lost everything.
Wow.
And then I met other people who had a bunch of property and they were able to ride out the storm. And I was like, what's the difference between these two? They're both in real estate. What do you mean? Like some people are crushing it and some people are getting crushed. And I remember and that's how I've developed my business model today off of, the right things that some people did and the wrong things that other people did, and making sure I do the right things and I don't do the wrong things. And so, but I got started in the residential world. Like I come from flipping houses. My first house was a duplex. I physically did all the work to it in 2009. I bought it on my credit card, right? Like I don't have money. Like nobody was lending any money in 2009. Like the reason for that downturn was real estate. So nobody wanted to lend on it. And there was a lot of creative financing type stuff. So, I'm happy to dive into some of that stuff if you guys want a little bit later. But
master of this, right?
We're kind of coming back to that right now. There's money's been really easy for the past few years. Now it's getting a little bit more difficult, and they're scrutinizing it. Like I have a big balance sheet, and they're giving me a hard time on some of this stuff. So we're doing a lot more creative financing type strategies now than we were over the past 3, 4, 5 years. where an institutional money was easy to come by. But that's how I got started. So it wasn't like all I had to do is kind of just pivot and be like, oh yeah, this is back to the old days, right? And so it hasn't really adversely affected us too much with what's been going on. But anyways, I got into residential. I started buying some single family, started wholesaling single family. I started flipping single family. And then I came across a guy with 100 grand, and we bought a small package of properties in the hood, again, of Charleston, South Carolina. And then after a year, I essentially did the BRRRR method, right? Bought, renovated, rented, refinanced, paid him off, and then I owned all these properties.
Okay, real quick.
What's up?
I think a lot of people probably know what the BRRRR method is. Could you explain it real quick? Just like a 1 minute quick explanation of what the BRRRR method is for people that are
So the BRRRR method is buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. So what that allows you to do is go buy something that's distressed. And let's say I'm all into it for 65% of that after repair value. So I buy a house for 50 grand. I put another $15,000 into it. I'm all in for 65 grand. Now it's worth 100 grand. I now go back to and I put a tenant in place, right? So now the tenant's covering all the overhead and operating expenses and the debt service on this thing. And then I go and get a bank to lend me, let's say 70% LTV, 70% loan to value. So on a $100,000 value, they're going to give me $70,000. I'm only into it for 65. So now I can pay back my private money lender, and I have a long-term loan in place, and I can let this thing just cash flow for however long I want to own it. My tenant's paying for the operating expenses, my tenant's paying for the debt service, and it kicks off cash flow every year. That allows you to ride out any sort of storm when you don't owe anybody money and you have long-term debt in place. So I like that. I'm able to take my chips off the table. Now it's just house money in play, right? Yeah. And then I can go do it again and do it again. And how many times can you do that? Infinite, as many times as you possibly want. Well, I think on single family, they max you out at whatever it is, 10, 15 loans or something nowadays. But in commercial, dude, I have like, I don't know, $200 million of loans against me. And if you pulled my credit report, it shows like 2 cars and that's it. There's nothing on my credit report. No, I think it shows
no personal guarantee.
Rentals. That's it.
No personal guarantee on any of the commercial end.
On the front end, when you're buying something that's distressed, typically you have to personally guarantee it. But when we refinance it,
you remove
so on the acquisition loan or construction loan, you have to personally guarantee that. But as soon as we refinance it, which usually happens in 12 to 18 months, then it's called a non-recourse loan where you can you don't have to personally guarantee it. So that's nice because as you grow your net worth, one of the other things you want to do is grow that safety net that kind of goes with it, so you don't end up ever, if you do drop, you don't drop that far, kind of a thing, you know. So I get into single family. I have a portfolio between those properties and a few others. I had about 10 units, including my primary residence that I had a couple of my buddies living with me, paying me rent. And dude, I wasn't rich, but at the age of 25 in 2010, I was financially free. And what that means in my world is your passive income exceeds your monthly expenses, right? And so, my rentals paid for all the operating expenses, all the debt service, and all my personal expenses, and put $1,000 a month in my pocket. So I wasn't rich, but dude, I was lifestyled up, man. I'm 25. I figured this thing out, So, So I'm all pumped up about it. And then I get invited out to one of these home meetings, right? Come over to my house at nighttime, talk to the guru guy. And I get invited into this multi-level marketing thing. All right. So I get, and so here's the thing. It's like, it was very logical. They were selling things that were like TV, internet, phone, home security systems, electricity, natural gas, and like all these home services. And I was like, well, dude, I'm a real estate guy. I could just offer this to my tenants and I get paid like a residual on all this stuff. And the reality is there's not really any money in those services unless you're doing it at a massive level like Verizon or AT&T because there's just no margin in them. And so they make all their money by recruiting people and, building the pyramid, right? And so when I did that, and I was like sold out. I love the personal development. I loved a lot of the entrepreneurs and stuff that I met in there, and that's how I learned how to like public speak. I couldn't talk to anybody before I did that, and not that I couldn't talk to anybody, but I couldn't talk to anybody in front of a group, And so I learned a lot, and I met a lot of amazing people in that process. But during that process, I drank the Kool-Aid, man, and I sold all but one of my properties. So I sold everything. And I was like all in on this multi-level marketing thing. And dude, within about 24, 30 months later, by August of 2012, dude, I was broke. Like I couldn't make the minimum payment on my credit card. I had to borrow money to make the minimum payment on my credit card. I had $80 in my bank account. I had $24,970 of debt on my credit card, $25,000 limit. So I had $30 left. And it was one of those things where like I would go to Subway and buy a foot-long sub and just get as many veggies on it as I possibly could. Eat half of it for lunch, half of it for dinner, and then not eat again until lunch the next day when I did that, right? And I was intermittent fasting before it was cool to intermittent fast. So I think I'm a little bit of a trendsetter.
This is by July of 2008.
No, this is July of August 2012.
2012. Okay.
So in whatever it was, like beginning summer of 2010, I'm financially free. And within 24 months thereafter, dude, I sold my properties. I was just completely broke. And so the only property I still had, like, dude, I was selling things on Craigslist to try to get $20. Like I was selling side tables and selling my DVDs for $4 a piece.
Oh my God.
And I was paying for gas out of the coins of the cup holder of my car. Like, I don't know if you've ever bought gas with 96 cents of coins before, but it's fucking embarrassing, dude.
Wow.
So it was like a really, really like crappy position to be in.
Because the market had crashed by then, or like all the other.
Dude, I was in the top 1% of performers in this network marketing company, and there just wasn't any money in it. All right. And I was like putting 35,000 miles a year on my car, and I was traveling all over, and it was just, there wasn't any real money to be made. And it came to a point where I had this big team, but like nobody on my team was making money. And I was like, dude, if I can't make this happen, and I have the ability to go and do this on a full-time basis, like I can't sleep at night telling other people that they can sign up and make money doing this. So I was like, you know what worked for me? Real estate. 2 years ago, I was financially free. Like, I'm going back to real estate. But the only property that I had was my primary home. And, you know, I bought it in 2009 and I fixed it all up. And so like, it was worth about $250. I owed about $180 on it or something. And I ended up essentially doing an installment contract, kind of like seller financing it, doing like a wraparound mortgage. So I got this lady to come in. She gave me 20% down, bought it for $250, gave me $50,000. And then she had a loan amount of $200. I had a loan amount of $180. She makes a payment to me every month. I make a payment to my bank every single month. Gotcha. Pay down my principal. I keep the spread of cash flow, and I got $50,000 up front. So that $50,000 in September, October of 2012 allowed me to then pay down my credit card a little bit. I bought a ring for my girlfriend. Got engaged, now my wife, right? And I ended up moving back to Cleveland and moving back in with my parents at 27 years old. So it was a crappy situation to be in then. But I think, you know, a lot of people, like, they won't swallow their pride, right? And I was just like, dude, I'm in a shitty spot. I can't keep doing this, right? I bought a Mercedes. I was part of this like private, you know, dining club and stuff in Charleston and spending money. And I wasn't a very good steward of capital previous to that. So going through that made me a very good steward of capital and really respect what money can do if it's put in the right things, right? And if it's invested in the right things. And so I ended up moving back to Cleveland, lived with my parents for a year, and then ended up moving into my wife's grandparents. They had passed away, I don't know, 5 years prior, but they still owned like this little bungalow house that was like 800, 900 square feet, 3 bed, 1 bath. And it was owned free and clear. I just had to pay the utilities. So I lived there for 2 years, just kind of like get my feet back underneath me. And when I left that network marketing company, I had a couple of the guys who were real high up in there that were like, dude, I got involved in this so I can invest in real estate. And can we throw some money at you? And so they ended up investing around $300,000. And like around Christmas of 2012 is when I bought my first apartment building. So bought some high-end flips, low-end flips, some single-family rentals, and I came across this 8-unit apartment building that was so cheap. It was, you know, it was bank-owned. That's how the market was back then. I was like, I can't lose money on this, so let me just try it. And after that first year of investing with those guys, I looked at where all the returns were on all the different properties we bought and all that stuff. And I realized I'm a really crappy flipper, right? Like contractors are really good at ripping me off.
Right.
I don't have the eye that, you know, the end buyer, the wife of the end buyer wants, like the finishes and the tile and all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't pick the colors. And I hated like the customization of every single house when I was flipping houses. I was like, isn't there like a better standardized process and more like scale somewhere? And I remember looking at the 8-unit building that I bought, and I was like, I go to one location to locations, right? I look at one roof instead of 8 roofs. I negotiated with one seller instead of 8 sellers. I look at one foundation instead of 8 foundations. And I got financing on one property instead of 8 properties. So it's like, I love the scale of commercial real estate. Yeah. And I remember after that first year, I said, hey, we're only buying apartment buildings now. So I ended up, and I was like a solo guy. These guys put up the money, but I did all the work. I found the deals. I found the contractors. I managed the contractors. I took the maintenance calls. I handled the leasing. Sometimes I even swung the hammer. I went to eviction court. I handled move-ins, move-outs, all that stuff. And built it up over the course of a couple of years to about 140 units. And in 2015, that partnership, as most partnerships do, right? Like, you know, you see how somebody really acts when you lose money, and you really find out how somebody is when you start making money with them, you know? And people don't think about that side of things. And, you know, it was incongruent on what we each thought the partnership bring to the table. So we ended up, it was a really, really like kind of ugly breakup for a couple of weeks there. And we realized only the attorneys would get rich in that situation. And we decided, hey, let's just liquidate the portfolio. So in like at the end of 2015, throughout 2016, we ended up liquidating those 140 units, and it sucked, man. I was like, dude, are you kidding me? I just worked my ass off for the past 3.5 years to build this up, and now I got to sell everything. And but what it did, man, it was like, you know, you hear some of these personal development guys are like, you know, sometimes a setback is really a set up for something better in the future. I was like, damn, that's exactly what this is. And it opened me up, and other people were like, dude, I heard you out of that like exclusive relationship you got now. Are you taking on private money lenders? Can we joint venture on a deal? Can we partner up on this and that, whatever? And it just opened me up. So in August of 2015, I started building my current portfolio, and I've done what I've done in the past 5 years and built, you know, over a third of $1 billion of property.
That's insane.
Like, pretty cool.
Mind-boggling. A third of $1 billion, like just in a few years. Like,
yeah.
I think personally, I don't know if anyone that has a bigger portfolio. I mean, maybe Grant Cardone. Like, does Grant Cardone even have a portfolio as big as yours? Or
yeah, he's at like 1.5 billion, I think.
Oh, wow.
But you know, like, dude, you can't compare yourself to a guy who's been doing it for 35 years. You know what I mean?
You'll be further ahead when.
Dude, if I got a $1.5 billion portfolio when I'm 62 years old, I'm going to jump off a bridge. No, I hear good things about Grant. I've never met him personally, but I heard good things about him.
Wow.
So what were the big lessons you learned from that first setback? You know, when you had 140 units and then you liquidated, there must have been some big lessons there you sort of learned in the trenches, and then you boomed in the last 5 years.
That's a great question, man. I think like I do masterminds where I get some entrepreneurs together and we just go and do some fun stuff. And we meet for a day and we talk about the hurdles that they're facing. And dude, we all go through the same stuff, right? Again, it's marketing, it's finance, it's accounting, it's human resources, it's building a team, it's operations, it's, you know, finding a COO, it's time management, it's time leverage, it's raising private money. It's like, dude, it's all the same stuff. Yeah. It's just at different levels, right? And every level you get to, there's a different level of problems that comes with it. And I would say that, you know, the big thing that I learned is like, I don't like getting married to anybody across all my businesses, right? Because I had to liquidate all my portfolio. So now I partner with people on a deal by deal basis, like a joint venture basis, but I'm not married to any partner. And what that allows me to do is, you know, I'm with, like, my COO has equity. My chief investment officer has equity. I do joint ventures with students and stuff, and other operators. But we do it on a deal by deal basis. So if shit hits the fan, we liquidate that one deal and it doesn't adversely affect the rest of my portfolio. At the same time, we can keep on doing deals together because we love each other and we like working together because we work so well together, and we realize what you bring to the table and what I bring to the table, you know, we can accomplish more together than we could individually. And and I like my life better because I can just focus on the shit that I'm good at. He focuses on the stuff that he's good at. And now, again, 1 + 1 = 3 in that scenario. You can do more together. And so I love joint ventures, but I hate partnerships. And that was a big lesson learned. The other thing was like the attorney thing. Like, it was the first ever time that I ever had a lawyer up, and I was, dude, the first time that happens, you are just consumed with stress. You can't sleep. You're thinking like, my world is ending. And like, listen, I I had, I don't know, somewhere between $400,000 or $500,000 of equity in that, and I thought that was everything to me at the time. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Da, da, da. My wife's like, fuck it, just walk away and start over again, right? You did it once, you can do it again. And she's like, it's not worth the stress. And one of my mentors at the time, he's like, dude, hand that off to an attorney, let them do their job. You go back to making money. Go back to generating revenue. If you generate revenue, revenue solves all problems. Go generate revenue. I was like, damn, that's actually really, really wise. Like, because otherwise, man, you can't see the picture if you're inside the frame, right? Like you can only see like this.
Yeah.
You need a 20,000 foot view. You need a mentor. You need somebody to coach you. You need to be in part of a mastermind or a group of high level thinkers that can give you an outside perspective. Because, dude, when you're in the weeds, man, it's hard to see which direction you're going.
I'm actually curious one thing, because I've seen a lot of video content about you, and I think you do an amazing job. I've seen about the Bratz syndication. It seems like you structure your deals different from the average apartment investor. And I might be wrong about this, but it seems like that might be a huge part of, why you've been wildly successful. Could you sort of tell our community sort of how you do apartment deals different from the average apartment investor?
Yeah. So like I told you guys before, I've never been to like a commercial real estate course. I didn't major in finance or real estate when I went to college. Like I didn't know much about commercial real estate other than like I was involved a little bit on the leasing side, but dude, I was a minion. I was just an ape going to work every single day, knocking on doors and cold calling to see if I could find a business owner to list or find another location, or a landlord to list their unit with us. And then I handed it off to the people who knew what the hell they were doing. So I didn't really have a real background in commercial real estate. And I always thought, I think we all play this game where it's like, oh my gosh, commercial real estate is like, it's so complicated, so complex. Like, how can I ever get involved in commercial? I don't even know how to make that leap. And at the end of the day, it's like, it's not that much more. I mean, there's definitely nuances to it, but dude, it's the same thing as residential real estate. There's just a few more like line items on your profit loss statement. It's like, it's the same strategies I use to find deals in commercial that I used in residential. It's the same BRRRR method that I use to buy, renovate, rent, and refinance in residential. I do the same thing with commercial real estate. And so I didn't even know what a traditional syndication was until like legit 2 years ago. I had no idea how it was structured. So in a traditional syndication, high level, the operator, you and me, gets, let's say, 20% of the deal. We own 20% of the deal for finding the deal, renovating the deal, doing all the work on it, putting management in place, kind of being the go-to person. And then the investors get 80% of the deal. So the investors who are actually putting up the cash get 80% of the deal. Now the operator can a lot of times fee the deal. So they can take acquisition fees and fundraising fees and loan sponsorship fees and management fees and asset management and property management and capital events fees. Dude, they fee the deal to death. And what's not congruent about it is, the operator's doing all the work, but they only get a small percentage of the equity, and but they're also getting fees, but they're getting feed regardless of how the property performs. The investors are passive investors, and they're getting 80% of the deal. I get it, but they're only getting paid if the property is performing. So if you buy a value add type project, they might not receive any money for 2 or 3 years until the property starts cash flowing. Whereas all of a sudden the operator got all their money up front in fees. Who gives a shit if the deal goes south? They can walk away. They got paid cold hard commissions, So I just didn't. That never made sense to me. So the way that I always structured it was I just didn't feel like they had common goals, common visions. Things weren't aligned. And so the way that I always structured it was totally reverse of that. And let me go back to traditional syndication. They invest their money's stuck in that project for typically 5 to 10 years at a time. So it's stuck in the deal. You're not going to get the money back unless the property actually sells. And that's maybe when you get a big windfall of cash. But dude, at the end of the day, I'm not about flipping properties because that's just transactional income. I want to build real wealth. And the real wealth is built by holding properties long-term, buying assets, and getting somebody else to pay for that asset. Meaning buying an asset, creating enough value for the tenants to want to come in, live in your property, pay you every single month that covers all the operating expenses for your asset, covers all the debt service for your asset, and puts money in your pocket every month. on that asset and pays down the loan balance. The property appreciates over time, and all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I'm worth millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. Like that's the game. That's how it's played. And so that's always been the end game. I'm always willing to sacrifice short term for the long term wins and the long term benefit. And so that's traditional syndication. Mm-hmm. I don't like the way that's structured. So here's what we ended up doing. Totally flipped it on its head. And I don't feed the deal to death. I'm the operator, but I get 80% of the deal. The investors get 20% of the deal. The difference is we might take an acquisition fee that's nominal, but we don't put any other fees in there. So we might take a small acquisition fee just to keep the lights on. And then I don't get paid again until the investor gets all their money back. So my goals are aligned with theirs because I get paid the next chunk of change from the refinance proceeds when we refinance a property. So remember I told you guys at the beginning, we buy, renovate, rent, and then refinance to hold the property long term. That's what the goal is. So I might take an acquisition fee, we renovate it, we rent it all out, put good management in place, put good tenants in place, and then we turn around, we refinance it. And now we're not talking about $100,000 house. Now we're talking about $10 million building, right? So same exact model. I'm all in for $6.5 million. It's worth $10 million. The new loan, $7 million. So with that $7 million, I pay back my investors. I put long-term debt in place, and there's some $500,000 of refinance proceeds that then gets carved up and it's non-taxable. So then I have all my chips off the table, long-term debt in place, and now we can let it cash flow. So it allows me, and I pay my investors regardless of the property's performance. So I pay them, let's say 10%. They invest $100,000 with me. They're making $10,000 a year on their money, no matter what, if the property's performing or not. I'm building that into like the cost basis of the property, and I'm turning over their money every 18 months. So you might on paper think, dude, why would I invest in a traditional syndicate? Why would I invest with BRRRR when I can invest in traditional syndication and get 80% of the deal and BRRRR is only giving up 20? Well, the reality is I can turn the money over every 3 or 4 times in a 5-year period, the same amount of time that they would be in one traditional syndication. And the difference is they're getting their payments the entire time, and there's more velocity on their money, and I don't have to sell the property to get them their money back. They still own equity in 3 or 4 different deals in 5 years versus having to sell a deal and not have any equity in 5 years. So it's actually a far better return for the investors. It makes more sense because now I'm incentivized to go and create as much value in this property as humanly possible, and get the investors their money back. So now, again, dude, we're in the same boat, rowing in the same direction, and we have common goals, common vision, common alignment on that side of things. And here's the other benefit. I don't have to go out and raise money all the time, right? Because I could just recycle my same investor capital every 24 months and roll it forward. Because as soon as I pay my investors back, guess what? Don't give me my money back. Put it into another deal, right? Let's keep it rolling. And so it makes it a lot easier to move forward. That being said, you got to find deep discount deals, off market, direct to seller, wholesale price deals. And they're typically pretty heavy value add. So it's a lot of work on the operator. But it makes sense, man, and it benefits everybody.
So is it like a preferred return then, plus the 20% to the investor?
Yeah, so I pay them a 10% while their money's invested. They get all their money back, and then they keep 20% equity in perpetuity forever.
Oh, wow, that's really
so, dude, it's a sweet deal for them. They get 20% of refi proceeds. They get 20% of depreciation. They get 20% of future sales proceeds, cash flows, everything.
So what you're typically around about 18 months to stabilize these properties?
Yeah, on average, it's about 18 months.
Are these things, do you need to acquire with hard money just to acquire these properties that they're that,
What we do is we end up getting a bridge loan. So we'll go to there's a bunch of bridge loan companies. I mean, there used to be a bunch. Now there's 95% of them are gone, but there's still a few left. But you go and get this bridge loan. So it's like a construction loan. You can go to a bank and get it, and they'll give you usually about 75 to 85% loan to cost. So on the $6.5 million that I'm all into a deal on, the bank loan might be about $5 million. That means I have to go and raise $1.5 million from my equity investors. Those are my private money lenders. They give $1.5 million, and I use that money for the down payment and some operating capital. Then the property's cash flowing. I can cover the holding costs on it at that time. And at the time of the refinance, they get their $1.5 million back. I pay off the $5 million loan, and then there's $500,000 of refi proceeds that gets carved up amongst all the different partners. And then the cash flows then get distributed on a monthly, quarterly basis, whatever you want to end up doing.
Wow.
It's a great. So you just completely reinvented the
syndication. It's like my goal is to get into Wikipedia soon, because it's just like different than what everybody else is doing. And you know, I think it's really stirring some things up in the commercial realm, because dude, if you go to an institutional investor, some guys out of New York or something, they're like, why would I ever do a deal with you? If you're like on pure principle, I wouldn't do a deal if I'm not getting 80% of the equity. I'm like, you're out of your mind, because I can show you twice as good of returns as you can get in a traditional syndication.
That makes sense, because we have like syndicators in this group here, and I mean the common complaint is that, you know, the performance never matches the pro formas, the actual performance. The actual performance always comes in way lower, just like you said, and then the investors are left with whatever.
Dude, I'm invested in traditional syndications. Like, I have money and I invest it in different projects and stuff. And I'm invested in one that I gave this guy money in I don't know, February of 2018. Never seen a payment on it yet.
Yeah.
Payment.
And I've heard that story before from folks.
I mean, it's rampant. So here's what I realized in raising private money. Investors want two things, right? This is why turnkey solutions work so well, because investors want predictability. They want predictable returns, and they want equity upside. So but most investments are only equity, or they're only predictable, right? It's either a debt or equity type investment. So if you can come up with a solution that offers both of those, like, you can crush, right? Like, you check every single box that investor, and you know, I'm holding the property, so there's a ton of tax advantages as well. So like, it's predictable, it's tax advantaged, it's backed by a primary asset, you know, like a tangible asset. It creates predictable cash flow for them, and returns on their revenue. So it just, dude, I can put it toe to toe against anything else out there. And from a safety, predictability, upside potential side of things, like, it smokes everything toe to toe.
Now, a lot of people in the group are like, they're flippers or they're wholesalers. And I think what a lot of them probably aren't thinking about is tax, right? Like, when you first get started, you're thinking about marketing, you're thinking about sales, you're like thinking, okay, I just gotta get the money in. Then once you start getting that money, you're thinking, you know, you pay your tax bill at the end of the year, you're like, wow, I just let go of a lot. Can you talk a little bit about how your model helps with tax and what some of the tax advantages can be with doing a lot of things that you do?
Well, I mean, you think about, dude, since, I don't know, the beginning of civilization, wealth has been measured in land ownership, right? Like, the landowners always controlled all the wealth. And when you control the wealth, guess what? You typically control the laws, and the tax laws especially. And so all the tax law is written for landowners, for business owners and landowners. Business owners get a lot of different write-offs and benefits. Dude, if you're a landowner, you have every benefit, right? And so there's benefits in owning real estate, and every kind of real estate. You can do this with even residential and commercial. You just do it on a grander scale to add some zeros to it. But I'll give you a couple examples. Number one is the tax-free refi proceeds. So a loan that you get is not taxable. You have to repay the loan. The difference is, it's not me repaying the loan or you repaying the loan. It's our tenants repaying that loan. So the idea is, like, right now you can get money at 3.5%, 3%. And so if you can make better than 3% on your money, which most active real estate operators and investors can do, then guess what? It makes sense to pull that money off the table and then go and deploy it in more assets, because it's your tenant paying that back. There's still plenty of debt service coverage on there, and you're taking that money and you're leveraging it into a 10% return, and you can now arbitrage 7% on that money. You know, so like, there's and it's not taxable money, right? So that's a big benefit. The second one I would say is like depreciation, right? So you can accelerate, like, depreciation alone is amazing. Accelerated depreciation is like unbelievable. And what accelerated depreciation, it's like a cost segregation study, if you guys have ever heard that. What that allows you to do is go into like a building, and let's say a commercial building depreciates over a 39-year period, right? And that means if you buy $1 million building, let's average it 40 years. What is that? $25,000 a year. You can depreciate the value. Okay, and that usually offsets a good chunk of the rents, so you're not really paying taxes on the rental income, rental revenue. Here's what it does. Like, here's the thing: my roof isn't going to last 40 years, right? And your appliances aren't going to last 40 years, and the flooring is not going to last 40 years, and the fixtures aren't going to last 40 years, and the windows aren't going to last 40 years, and the mechanicals aren't going to last 40 years. So all those things have their own life time frame.
Yeah,
and you can hire a cost segregation study. Or hire somebody to come out and do a cost seg study. And what they do is they're like, all right, here's all these different things. That furnace is only going to last 8 years. So we can depreciate it over 8 years instead of 40 years.
Yeah.
That flooring is only going to last 5 years, 3, whatever it ends up being. So they take all these things and they abbreviate it. And then you can take, $1 million of depreciation over a 40-year time frame. And a lot of times it's about 20% of that done in the first year. You could take $200,000 in year one instead of $25,000. So what that allows you to do is once you're generating revenue, and again, this is like one of those levels upon levels. You get to the next level, there's another level of problems. And once you start making a lot of money, taxes are a big problem, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you do that? You can do it with cost segregation studies. Accelerate the depreciation, take a lot of it on the front end, and then you can any of these windfalls of cash that you have coming in from either flipping buildings, wholesaling buildings, cash flow from buildings, sales of buildings, whatever, you can offset a lot of that by doing a cost seg study. What else? There's 1031 exchanges, right? Like I can sell one of my buildings as long as I roll the money and all the gains into another building. I don't have to pay any taxes on those gains until I end up selling the final building, and then at that time, then I pay taxes on everything that I made. But here's the benefit. You keep on taking all that money, you can roll into bigger properties without having to infuse any more money, and you keep on rolling up. And like when I pass away, my kids inherit all my property, not down here where I bought it, but it's up here wherever the value is when I pass away. So if they could sell it a day after I pass away and not pay any taxes on it.
Wow.
It's crazy, dude.
We were actually saying before this show, like with cost seg and everything else, with the number of units you have, your tax bill must be like 0. That's what we were thinking.
Yeah, I don't pay much in taxes, if anything.
Jeff Bezos, number 2.
So no, here's the other thing. I do heavy value adds, right? So I'm not just buying something that's cash flowing from day one. It's usually losing money year one. And a lot of the improvements we're making are expensed in that year versus put on a depreciation schedule.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends on where it lands. So like that makes a difference. And, and then we do cost seg studies and we accelerate depreciation and all that different kind of stuff. So it just kind of depends. You don't want to accelerate depreciation on a deal that you're planning on selling in 12 or 18 months because it just doesn't make sense. If you plan on holding it and you put long-term debt after we refinance it and put long-term debt on it, that's when we do the cost seg study on it. And then we have this big windfall of depreciation in year 1, year 2, year 3.
Yeah. Wow. That's really, really impressive. Now, I got to ask you, are you focused? Is your portfolio focused in one area, or are you spread out over a few different areas? Or
I'm in 10, 11 states, I think, 10 or 11.
Wow.
So a lot of it's in the Southeast. I have a lot of stuff in South Carolina and Georgia. It's just kind of where we got started, kind of caught some momentum back in 2015, 2016, and ended up getting like some certain relationships of people that source a lot of amazing deals for us. And then we just kind of got first seat at the table on all these different projects. So that allowed us to really scale up pretty quickly. But I have stuff out in Texas and Oklahoma. I have stuff in the Midwest and Illinois, and I'm buying some stuff. Like my self-storage deal that's closing tomorrow is in Jersey. I got a bunch of stuff in Cleveland, obviously, because I'm in Cleveland. A lot in South Carolina, a lot in Georgia, some stuff in Florida, Alabama, North Carolina, Louisiana.
all over.
I don't remember where else, dude. I don't know. It's everywhere.
So it sort of sounds like you're approaching multifamily sort of like a rehabber approaches like an ugly house. Like you look for the most banged up one, the vacant one, the tall grass. Maybe
tall grass, boarded up windows, man. That's what I'm looking for. You know.
And then
I want the ugliest building in the best neighborhood, just like you want the ugliest house on the best block.
And you're roughly looking for like that 25% equity when you're all said and done, or more.
Yeah, we're looking to be all in for 65 cents on the dollar. Our overall portfolio is around 60, maybe 62 cents on the dollar. So on $350 million of value, we're, I don't know, below or 2.25, something like that, 220, 210. I don't even know. I got to update the numbers. So, but it's pretty cool. Like I only owe my investors and the bank a little over 200 million, and we're worth 350 million. So we've created a lot of equity. And dude, we've created that much equity in a hot market. You know what I mean? So when people are like, oh, there's no deals out there, there are deals out there. You just got to find them before other people find them. You know, you gotta get creative. You got to start finding stuff that's, off market, direct to seller.
How do you find your deals? A lot of people in the group, we're all in the single family space, most of us. And I know in the single family, it's like, you got direct mail, you got pay-per-click, you got all these different, but like,
that's a mess. Yeah.
How many people, like how many apartment buildings can you buy by sending out text messages? Like what channels do you even use for getting big multifamily units like that?
I mean, you can use all the same ones. You can drive for dollars. You can dial for dollars. You can do direct mail. You can do Google search apartment buildings, Boston, Massachusetts, right? And see what pops up. And look for the ones with the worst reviews. Those are typically the most distressed. And managers, operators aren't taking care of it. The tenants are pissed off. Typically, the city's on their ass, right? Like you can go look up delinquent tax bills. You can go to the city building department and see if there's properties that have a bunch of delinquencies or something on it, that are disheveled and have marks on the property of saying that the city's keeping their eye on it because it's falling apart. And they'll gladly give you that list. What I've done is kind of created like a world of bird dogs, right? And so I started talking about my deals, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago on social media, just not even like no ulterior motives other than just like helping people. I truly believe that like if I'm telling people what we got going on, who knows? Maybe they come across a deal and they sell it to me. Maybe they come across a deal and or they want to buy something from me eventually. Maybe they want to invest with me. I don't know, but I just started talking about doing deals, right? And trying to help people out and tell them how I'm structuring them and all that stuff. And it turned into a ton of deals and a ton of investor capital. And so, then I launched this education platform about 2 years ago, and I got great, like some of the best single family operators in the country coming out and trying to learn how to scale from residential into apartments. And I break it down to a very simple 3rd grade level because I come from the residential. I know what it's like. And when I started doing that, I'd have all these people who would go out, they'd be great operators and they could go out and find good deals, but maybe they didn't have the balance sheet to qualify for the loan, or maybe they didn't have the money for the down payment. They couldn't raise the capital because they'd never been down that road before. Mm-hmm. So I was able to step in and get involved in those deals. And dude, I don't need 100% of the deal, right? Like let me focus on my unique ability, which is raising money, sponsoring loans. We're really good at kind of asset managing remotely from anywhere in the country. And so we focus on that. We let the operator go and do the project management and find the deals, right? And we'll kind of be boots on the ground. And then we have our equity investors as well. So like my portfolio, my overall portfolio, I probably have just shy of like 30% ownership across all my deals, like on everything. But dude, 30% of a watermelon is a hell of a lot more than 100% of a grape. There's a lot more juice in the squeeze of that. So I think and I like my life better. When I was a single family guy and I had to do everything, like you couldn't carve up a $10 to $25,000 wholesale fee or flipping profit amongst a bunch of A players because there's just not enough juice in the squeeze. Like it just wasn't interesting. And when I'm doing an apartment building, dude, like the deal I'm closing tomorrow has $8 million of equity in it, right? Like, so I have 14% of that deal. It's worth $1.25 million or something like that. It's 880,000, I think, of equity in that project. So like I have a small percentage, but guess what? It increased my net worth by $1 million, right? A single deal. How many times can you do that? You can do that. I don't know. We close 1 to 2 deals a month. And we just keep rocking and rolling with it.
What does that deal look like? Is it like below market rents, or is it half?
New construction. It's a development deal.
Oh, new construction. Okay.
Yeah, so we're developing some self-storage in New Jersey. So found some amazing land and got it rezoned, and it's like in a primo location. We had this feasibility study done, and the guy's like, "Dude, this is a home run. Like you gotta this is one of the best deals I've seen in 25 years of doing feasibility studies. So we're all in for just shy of 10 million bucks, and it's worth just shy of 19 million when we're all said and done.
Wow. So are there areas you'll avoid? Like, it looks like you don't do like C-class areas from what I was reading. Is it most?
Yeah, when I got started, I was doing C-class because you got to start somewhere. You know, like you're not going to get a seat at the table with the big boys unless you got a portfolio somehow. And it's easy to get involved in apartments and multifamily and C-class areas. So, but you don't want to stay in C-class, right? Just because it, like a lot of my C-class stuff from a few years ago served its purpose. I'm selling all of it right now. So I'm getting all that stuff off my plate, and then I'm focusing more on the B+, A- kind of properties, workforce housing in good, safe communities, great school districts. Like that's kind of what I'm looking for, the newer product or fully renovated type products. And that stuff, you know, like on paper, C-class looks really good, right? But the reality is, if you've been in this business, you know that there's just much higher turnover. There's professional tenants. There's, you know, they don't take their trash out. They put their mattresses and leave it in the friggin' hallways, right? And so like you're dealing with garbage like that you don't deal with in B-class and A-class type properties. So, you know, I've gotten to a point where I built a good portfolio. Those properties serve their purpose, got me a seat at the table with all the nicer stuff now, and I've got a big balance sheet. And so now I can sell off some of that C-class and really focus more on the A and B class stuff.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's cool.
Do you have it? Now, I'm sure you've done so many deals now. I'm sure you've had some deals that have just gone really bad, where you think it's going to go one way, you think the numbers make sense, and it just goes back. Do you have any examples of those and insights from what you learned from stuff going wrong?
I got too many examples of it. So I was really bad at single family, dude. I've lost a bunch of money on single family flips and stuff. Just bad at time frames on it. And I should have watched more of your boy Tarek, you know. And no, so on multifamily, here's what I like about multifamily: you can screw it up, and even if you screw it up, it's like amortized over 30 years though, right? Like the cost basis is amortized over 30 years. Right. And so because of that, you can be off by an extra $500,000, and it really only adversely affects the deal by, what is that, $15,000, $16,000 a year, right? If you think about it that way. So the cool thing about commercial real estate and buying and holding real estate is that even if you screw it up, the worst case scenario, you can let it cash flow and just sit on it longer than you want to. The only apartment I've ever lost money on was a 44-unit apartment building that I bought a few years ago from a buddy of mine, or a guy that I knew. And he sold to me. He's like, dude, 80% occupied, man. Why don't you buy this thing? I'll give you a good deal on it, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, all right, man, cool. It's 80%. I verify the rent roll with the leases. I was like, all right, we're going to turn this thing around. I think I can flip this in 6 months and make $300,000 on it. It was C-class area. I didn't really want to hold it long term, but I thought we could make some money. I ended up buying it. And although it was 80% occupied, that means people are living there. That does not mean people are paying rent. Okay. So you need to understand the difference between occupancy and economic occupancy. And what I didn't do, because he was a buddy, I didn't verify the rent collections. And when I got in there, I realized that, I thought I was going to flip 9 units and put this thing right back up on the market in the next 30 days. And it ended up being, I had to flip it, I had to kick out and evict 25 more tenants and then renovate all of those units. And dude, it was a nightmare. Not only did I have to outlay all that expense, but I also didn't have that revenue coming in. So now I'm outlaying additional expenses for carrying costs and everything else. And it was like, I ended up renovating the whole building, and we ended up selling it in 18 months instead of 6 months. Instead of making $300,000, I wrote a check for $50,000 to get rid of it. I could have held, here's the crazy thing. I could have held on to it and made the money back and sold it at break even in another 24 months. But the opportunity cost of how much it took my team away from growing our existing portfolio, I needed to just get it off our plate. I knew that we could make that $50,000 back tenfold, 100-fold on other deals. So we ended up, I said, hey, let's just write the check. Let's get rid of it. And here's the crappy part, man. Our investor, he didn't want like that. He didn't want the structure that I told you guys about before. He's like, dude, I want the equity, right? I'm used to traditional syndications, and I want 50% of the equity if I bring the money, and you do the work and you get 50%. All right, dude. And I could have went to him and said, hey, we lost money on this. You owe $25,000 and you didn't make any money on your money. So of your 250 grand that you put up, not only did you not make a return on it, but you're only getting $225,000 back. And the reality is I could have done that, but I didn't, right? Because your reputation is worth far more than $25,000. So here's what I ended up doing. I wrote the check for all 50 G's, gave him all of his money back. He didn't make a return, but what I ended up doing is I gave him equity in another deal that I was closing at that time. And that was, his equity was worth about $75,000. So it was a way that I could still get a win for him, but it didn't cost me anything, just equity on paper. And now he's got depreciation from that deal. Now he's got, we're going to refinance it this year. He'll get some money from the refi, and then he'll have cash flows from then on. So ends up taking something that's a really, a lemon, turning it into lemonade, right? And again, I think the most profound lesson in that is like, I didn't have to lose money on that deal. I could have just wrote it out and let it cash flow. That's the beauty of buying rental real estate, is if you could just let it cash flow, you can pay down enough principal, bump up the rents over a couple of years, let the property appreciate in value, and then refinance the deal. And then I would have cashed them out and not lost any money. But again, it just wasn't worth it because of the opportunity cost.
I gotta ask you, is the buddy still a buddy?
less of a buddy.
Less of a buddy.
Less of a buddy. More of an acquaintance now, I would say.
At least we all learned something from your mistake. Economic occupancy. Make sure to check that out, guys.
You got to verify the collections, man. You got to see the actual bank account and see how much money, and then have them sign off that they're certifying the financials, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have them do any of that kind of stuff. But you'll learn your lesson, right? Now, if that happened to me a second time, then I'm the idiot, right? Like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I learned my lesson. Now we verify collections, right? I've had the wool pulled over my eyes so many times that like it's very, very hard. Like it's so calculated on the deals that we do. Like we cannot lose on these deals. And I think the biggest lesson in buying any property is buying it at a wholesale discounted price. If you buy it at a discount, you can screw it up. You can screw it up bad. And as many deals as I've screwed up, I still made money on every single deal except for that one.
Wow. Great tips.
Since we're here with the king of wholesaling, we got to ask you this question. Robert Wensley with Investor Lift, it's wholesaling all day long.
Yeah.
Do you wholesale commercial deals today? And if so, like, what do you see as like the average wholesale fee out there on some of these projects?
I mean, what I've learned in wholesaling apartments is it's very difficult to wholesale, right? Because it's easy to actually contract a property with an assignability clause because everybody expects you to assign it into and create a new entity anyways. Like every property I own is in its own LLC. The bank's going to require that. So it's very easy to contract a property and put an assignability clause in there. So if you have a buyer lined up, you can assign it. We typically don't because we don't want to take on the risk. But I have a bunch of people that, I got all these students and I have all these social media followers and stuff like that want to buy apartment buildings. And we'll just kind of like put a fee agreement together and say, hey, kick me 5% equity in the deal, right? Or kick me a 2% assignment fee or something when you close, if you close. And if you close, great. If you close and don't pay me, then guess what? Now you're blacklisted from the community, And this is a small, dude, there's not a lot of people doing a lot of deals, right? So it's a very small community. You will get spun out very quickly if you screw somebody over. So that's kind of how we structure it right now. Sometimes we'll actually close on it, put a little bit of cleanup in there, do some professional cleaning, turn some units, and then put it back on the market and do it that way. That's actually easier for us if it's over $1 million deal. If it's under $1 million deal, we can wholesale it. So, if somebody can come up with cash or a hard money lender can come up with cash on stuff that's under $1 million, that's typically the easiest stuff to assign and to move from a wholesale standpoint. Otherwise, they got to line up financing, they got to line up all this other different stuff. Right. And there's appraisals and there's, environmental inspections and there's surveys and there's all this other crap that has to go into it that you don't have to do it if somebody's just coming in buying it cash. So if it's under $1 million, that's number one. Stay under $1 million bucks. You can assign it. And the other thing is, you asked about what the fee is. Like, I don't know, average fee is somewhere between, I'd say, $50,000 to $200,000 for an assignment fee.
Really good. Wow.
So it's pretty solid. I'd say they probably average around $75,000 to $100,000.
Wow.
Right. We
So,
got to get some of your deals on Investor Lift.
yeah. I'll like we have some, dude. I'm trying to figure out what is the best way, because I have a lot of buyers and I have a lot of opportunities that just don't meet our buying criteria. Like I come across C-class stuff all over the country that is an amazing deal for somebody who's really more getting started. It's not an amazing deal for me. It's either too small or more like a little bit too, C-class. I'm just looking for a certain grade of property, and I'm looking for a certain size property. I want it 100 units or bigger.
It'd be perfect for beginner, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, if I wanted to,
for sure,
you could be the first one we're gonna call. Like, yo, Tim, spread the love.
yeah, exactly.
Class.
I come across deals all the time. It's just, I'm trying to create the medium. Like, what's the best medium where it takes up none of my time? Like I don't want it to take up any time or take up any time away from my team going out and acquire. Because, dude, like, we can go out and find a deal. We could take on a $10 million, let's say we're all in for $6.5 million. We take a 2 or 3% acquisition fee. That's $130,000 to $180,000 or $195,000, right? So you're talking about, I can go and take down an apartment building where not only like that's more than a wholesale fee on it, but I also have the equity in the deal. It's going to create tax advantages for me and cash flow for me. So I would rather go out and buy property than wholesale property. But if I can create a medium, or you can create a medium that I can just kind of plug a property into and not think about it and make a fee on it, I think there's some real opportunity there. I just don't know how to do it right now, and I just haven't dedicated the time to doing it.
Investorlift.com.
We just got
Investorlift.com. I've been Robert's guinea pig for the last 2 weeks.
He's got some big assignment fees already in the first week.
Nice.
I'm a proud fan.
Yeah. Love it, man.
So Tim, can you tell us about Commercial Empire coming up? I know you got one in like 3 weeks.
Yeah. So Commercial Empire used to be like the A to Z of how we started, right? And like those were tickets. We used to do live events, $8,500 to come out to a live event. And with the whole COVID-19 thing, obviously we can't do live events anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've realized for the past 2 years is like, dude, I fire hose people, right? Like I've been on here for 1 hour and I've tried to give as much value as I possibly can and a lot of different tips and strategies. So imagine spending 3 days with me and how much value I can drop, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it ended up being like a fire hose of A to Z on how to do every element of finding off-market deals, raising private money, securing the financing, doing the due diligence, doing the renovations, the value add process, filling it up with quality tenants, putting good management in place, what the refinance looks like, all these other different exit strategies like business development, how I built out my team. Like I did all of that. And it ended up being like, holy cow. I got a ton of great reviews and people are like, dude, best event I've ever been to, hands down. And so like, that makes me feel good. But what I found is like, people really just want to go out and find a deal first, right? Like, let's cross that bridge before we cross the bridge of, raising private money and structuring the financing and then the value add process and the tenants and then all that. So what I've ended up doing is, because of the whole COVID-19 thing and because of kind of really what the feedback that we've gotten from students is we've turned it into kind of more of an acquisitions boot camp. So it's like a 3-day, it's like 5 hours for 3 days in a row. And it's all about finding deals and wholesaling them or creatively financing and taking them down with creative financing. And then doing it that way. And then if they want to come out to Commercial Empire, that's cool. They can come out to that. We've turned that into a virtual event. It's only $2,500 now. But this acquisitions one, that's the one that you're talking about, is only $500. So, dude, it's 3 days, ton of value, and like, I always think about like, how many deals do I need to do to create $500 of value? And it's like, you need to do like, I don't know, 1% of a single deal. And it pays for it, right? It pays for itself. I mean, maybe 0.5% or 1/10 of 1%. So, dude, you go out and do one deal. You find one deal. Your acquisition fee could be $50,000, right? Or your wholesale assignment fee could be $50,000, like easily on commercial real estate. And that's what, like, you can really justify making the investment in yourself, right? And so, we give like we do some ninja stuff, some really really cool tips, techniques, strategies. So if anybody wants to come out to that. Definitely plug in. I don't even know if we have a new website yet. I think it's like, it used to be commercialempire.com. You guys want to fill that out or go to like my website, legacywealthholdings.com and just say, hey, I'm interested in like some sort of mentorship and coaching, and we'll get you guys the link for that. But yeah, I appreciate that, man. Like that wasn't one of the reasons why I want to come on here, but yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to plug in, they're more than welcome to. I do a ton of free content on Facebook, ton of free content on my website, legacywealthholdings.com, and plug into that. If you're looking for something a little bit more formal, then dude, plug into this. It's $500, 3 days, and ton of value. A lot of good stuff there.
Awesome, that's great. I'm gonna check it out.
I know you guys are coming. I'm gonna get. You guys got tickets on the way.
Front row virtually, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. I can't wait to do them in live again, dude. I love the connections, right? I love getting together with people. We'll probably end up doing like a big forum or something once a year and get everybody out there, maybe twice a year. I don't know.
That'll be good.
But I think dude, people are itching, right? They want to get out. They want to, rub elbows. And there's a really high quality crowd that comes out to my events. It's not like, I mean, there's some newbies, and that's cool. But there's a lot of really, really good operators, guys like you who are already crushing it in the single family side of things, just being like, I know there's something more here. Like, how do I develop the residual income? How do I develop the passive income? How do I really build wealth and the legacy and redirect my family tree in that regard? And so there's some real high level thinkers. There's a lot of people with money that come out because they're thinking just in bigger dollars, right? You're surrounding yourself with just bigger mindsets, and that elevates everybody in the room.
That's awesome. Great, guys. We posted a link below, so check that out. Tim Bratz, legacywealthholdings.com. He's got a 3-day event, only $500. I mean, I think that's a steal of a deal to learn from someone like you. That's been great. Guys, we're going to wrap things up here in a couple of minutes, but if you have a question, post it down below in the comments. This is your chance to ask a question from Tim. I know we've had a few questions come in over the course. Let me see if I can find something that we haven't addressed yet. I got, Josh, all your comments. So I'm like trying to feed through, like, which one's Josh? Good to see you on the show. Glad to have you on live. It's great. Let's see, where do we go? I saw a few coming here, man. There's so many. Guys, if you have a question, post a comment below and we'll have Tim Bratz answer it live.
I got to ask you one last question, Tim. How do you gauge this market right now? I mean, supposedly coronavirus cases are going up. Do you think real estate could soften potentially in some markets in the next 6 months, or what do you gauge of the market right now?
Yeah, man, I think that's a great question. Here's the thing. There's a lot of people that speculate, and all that is speculation, right? Like, nobody knows where the market's going to go. What I can tell you is in every market, there is opportunity and there is struggle, right? Like the struggle 4 months ago was there's no deals out there. The opportunity was there's money everywhere, right? Today, there's a little bit less money. There's a little bit more deals, but there's a lot of question about uncertainty of where is the market going? How do I underwrite it? How do I do all this different stuff? Here's what I do know, dude. Multifamily is, especially B-class multifamily, is the most insulated asset class out there. When the market's good, everybody can afford it. When the market's down, all those luxury and A-class renters move into more of like a workforce type housing. And so it's very insulated. Not only that, but like if you go and try to get financing on a hotel right now, good luck. There's zero lenders for hospitality right now. There's zero lenders, about, 2%, 5% of the lenders are out there for office and retail right now. But the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have a federal mandate that they have to continue lending on multifamily housing. It's the only asset class that has it. So people don't always need to go to work, right? They don't always need to have a retail store. They got Amazon that can do that. They don't always need warehouse space or office space or whatever. So but they always need a place to live. So you got that going for you. B class, it's very insulated. The lenders have to continue lending on multifamily. And I think if you have good, sound buying principles, there's going to be deals out there, right? Like we were talking offline before this. Dude, there were good deals and bad deals 6 months ago. Yeah. And there's going to be good deals and bad deals 6 months from now. And there's good deals and bad deals today. It's just, what are you buying and how are you underwriting it? And how are you stressing the numbers? Are you trying to kill deals, or are you trying to force deals to happen? Like, I try to kill every single deal that comes across our desk. And if I can't kill it, then guess what? I know it's a good deal, right? Yeah. So we end up doing a lot of that stuff. and just trying to force deals. So a couple of the buying criteria that I would make sure you guys are doing is, number one, buy at a wholesale price. If you buy at a wholesale price, you have many different exit strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, force appreciation, create appreciation through that value add process instead of speculating on appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
Number three is never speculate, right? Like you can hope for it, but never bank on appreciation unless you're actually creating it. Number four, cash flow. Buy for cash flow, not for buying at a retail price, hoping tomorrow it's worth more than it is today. I always buy for cash flow. I think that's kind of like a lowest common denominator of does a deal work. If you can cash flow it, guess what? You can probably wholesale it. You can probably flip it. You could probably refinance it. You could probably sell it on the retail market. You could, there's a lot of different exit strategies if it cash flow. Worst case scenario, right out the storm, right? With just cash flow. Yeah. Stressing the numbers on the underwriting, right? If I can rent a unit for $900 a month or somewhere between $825 to $900, I'm going to underwrite it for like $850 or $825, the lower end of that. If God forbid I get 900, the numbers come out better, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's awesome, but I underwrote it at a lower value. Another thing that I'm doing is I'm underwriting with interest rates a little bit higher than what I can get right now. I'm underwriting with a lower loan to value than what I can get right now. I'm underwriting with a little bit higher expenses than what it actually cost me to run and operate one of these apartment buildings. So, I'm stressing the numbers from all different directions. And if you stress the numbers and try to kill the deal and it still works, then it's a really, really, really good deal and you got to buy it.
Yeah. I've got a question here from the audience, Tim. Do you have any plans on going into development at all, or are you sticking to value add projects?
Yeah, I do a lot of development. I build a lot down south. It's cheaper labor, cheaper material. It's easy to work year round. Like up here in Cleveland, man, you are shut down on any exterior work for 4 to 6 months of the year. Down in South Carolina and Georgia, we can work year round and we can build, we can pour concrete year round. We can do exterior work year round. So I do a lot of development in South Carolina and Georgia, townhouses, multifamily. That's typically what we're building down there. And we're doing our first self-storage deal in New Jersey, outside of Philadelphia right now. So it's not our first deal self-storage. We've done 2 other self-storage deals, but it's our first development deal in self-storage.
Wow. Interesting. That's a segment not a lot of people think about, like self-storage, but I imagine the cash flows must be pretty good, right?
It's the one other asset class that still has, it's still pretty insulated from market cycles. If there's a market cycle, a market shift that occurs, then people might downsize, but they don't want to get rid of their stuff, so they put it into self-storage. Or it's such a low monthly expense that they don't usually get rid of it. You know what I mean? So we like it, but it can easily, if there's a lot of self-storage that starts popping up in a single marketplace, it can easily cannibalize itself and all the values drop significantly. So you got to be very careful and make sure you do like feasibility studies and know what the density in the area is. So there's definitely some nuances to it, but I like that. I like mobile home parks too. Like there's some really nice mobile home parks out there. If you can come across some good ones, and the property taxes are next to nothing. So the cash flows are amazing on those.
Yeah.
There's some good deals there. Thing is, like, dude, I'm an expert at multifamily. I'm not an expert at some of the other. I know enough to be dangerous, and we could figure it out. But I always partner with somebody who's an expert in mobile home parks or in self-storage or in whatever the other asset classes. Like I'm doing a residential assisted living this month as well. I'm partnering with somebody who's already got 6 of those, and they're crushing it in that business. And we're gonna do one, and then we're gonna consider doing like a big development of residential assisted livings. So, but it's not me running it. I'm the money guy, right? Let me bring the money. Let me sponsor the loans. Let me help, just kind of guide you from a commercial real estate standpoint. And then from there, that's all I want to be involved in. Like that gives me the most scale in my life and in my business.
Wow. Great. Man, we've gone through so much on the show. We've gone through your $1 million challenge, how you went from setting this goal to generate $1 million a month. You built over $1 million of cash, built over $1 million built over $1 million of equity. That was absolutely incredible. We talked about your background, how you got started in single family, all the bad stuff you went through, grinding, just really doing what you had to do to get to where you are today with over $350 million in your portfolio, 3,900 units. This is absolutely incredible. You definitely own more real estate than anyone I know personally. So this has been absolutely incredible having you on the show. Do you have any final thoughts or advice or insights for the group, or anything else that you can leave us with before we wrap things up here?
Yeah, man, I think they just need to keep on getting plugged into stuff like this, right? Like keep on watching you guys. You guys deliver amazing content. You got good core values. Like you guys are great people to follow, right? And so make sure that you're staying engaged. Make sure you're staying around and feeding your mind the good stuff, right? Because if you go and read through your Facebook feeds and you read through the news that pops up on your phone, you turn on the TV, dude, that's all negativity.
Yeah.
And the way that you advance and you accelerate in life is not only by being around people that are going to elevate you and feed you positivity, but also getting rid of the negativity. That creates way more of a gap and way more of a spread if you do both of those things, right? So, like I read something a little bit ago where it's like, there's two types of people, right? There's thermostats and there's thermometers, and a thermometer reacts to what's happening in the environment, right? It reads the temperature after it's already happened. It gets influenced by other things out there, right? It gets told what direction to move up or down and how it should react and how it should respond to things. Then there's thermostats. The thermostat does the influencing. The thermostat sets the temperature. The thermostat indicates where things are going. And I think we're in a world of thermometers right now, right? We need some more thermostats. Yeah. We need some more leaders. We need some more people who are going to be like, they're not going to be sheep, right? They're going to be like, here's where we're going. Here's how we're doing it. People want to follow confident people. And dude, the world needs the world could use one more great leader, right? So I'm asking you guys, be a thermostat in a world of thermometers and go and make an impact, pay it forward. Hopefully I've inspired you to go and do some cool stuff and make sure that you inspire other people. I think when you have the ability to do some amazing things, I think you have the responsibility to do some amazing things and help other people out with their life, So do it, be a leader.
Awesome, man. You've inspired me. Josh, are you inspired? You ready?
Commercial? Tonight, Tim. I mean, you opened my eyes to commercial in a different way. I haven't heard anyone describe commercial to me in those terms. So, Robert, you and I are going to be there for 3 days, man, a couple weeks from now.
Let's do it. Absolutely.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm sure a lot of folks got a ton of value tonight. Thanks so much.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, guys. And thank you for all the value and all the content you guys put out there. You guys are rock stars. So appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much.
Guys, if you're watching right now, Josh, myself, Tim, we don't make anything doing these shows. So if you appreciate the content you're seeing tonight or any other of the shows you watch with us, destroy the like button. You can't just click it. You got to destroy the like button, subscribe. And that's our way of knowing that you're getting value from the content that we're bringing to you every single week. So destroy the like button, share this, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And Tim, thanks so much for having us on the show. This has been absolutely incredible, huge inspiration. And Josh and I are looking forward to joining you on your virtual event here coming up in a few weeks.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Have a nice night.